Welcome to the Murphy, Sam, and Jodi After the Show podcast, which today is about how to get past and over a decision regret. Sometimes it's a purchase decision. Sometimes it's a selling decision. Sometimes it's, I don't know, just decisions you make in your life.
Decision.
Especially when the outcome is not what you expected, and then you wind up there just agonizing over everything after the fact.
I want specifics of why we're doing this, though.
All right.
Please, deets, please.
Yeah, well, so the deets actually where this all came from are the questions that I've been receiving in recent weeks about why we sold our dad's Corvette.
Oh, my gosh.
So, my dad, to recap for anybody that hasn't, and if you have, I'll make this quick so that you're not glossing over. But my dad passed away in 2020. When we were kids, there was a 1966 Corvette that sat in our carport, didn't run for 40 years. I rode in it when I was a kid, in kindergarten, and then another couple of times. And that was it. It was a very sentimental piece for all of us because it was my dad's car.
Yeah.
And so when he passed, we held on to it for 3 years. It stayed in my carport where it didn't run for 3 years. And the three of us decided to sell it. And it wasn't...
The three of you, meaning you and your siblings. Not Murphy, Sam, and Jodi.
Oh, yeah.
Just wanted to...
I was totally against selling it, but...
Sam's recommendation. No.
It sat in our carport. We were married.
Right.
Yeah.
And so we made the decision to sell it. And what was super cool a couple of weeks ago, and I think this is why it's brought the questions back up, is the current owner of the vehicle, who was one of the people who fixed it up. There have been two buyers since we sold it. But this guy, lives right down the street. Super nice guy. Came to share it. Our friend Steve, Chapis, surprised us and coordinated this whole thing. So I got to see the car and ride in it.
Mm-hmm. Man, I had to keep that on the low, too. Yeah. It's like, just please leave your Saturday open, Murphy.
So Jodi's posted, videos of it on our socials. And the questions came back like, wow, that's beautiful. Why did you keep it? Yeah. Or people that think it's a travesty that we sold it.
Yeah.
And
a lot of kind of judgment.
So when you have that many people start to ask you that, even you start to wonder, okay, well, did we make the right decision? Now, I will say before I get into something that I discovered that blows my mind here.
A pain point.
Because I was curious. But no, it blows my mind actually in a positive way.
Oh, good.
But,
okay.
The car is not my dad, as we've talked about. And yes, it would have been awesome. But there are some, there are practical things. Mm-hmm. It wasn't running. We didn't know how much it was actually going to cost to restore it. And when you do, are you going to drive a car like that in, everyday traffic? Because it's fiberglass.
Yeah.
It's in original condition now, then what? And there's three of us. And how do you swap that? How do you insure? How do you do all that, If one wants to keep it, how do you buy the others out? There's a lot of rational thought once you get past the
emotion.
Right. And so... And so, yes, it was tough to see it go, but I think we were all and still are comfortable with that. Well, I just decided out of sheer curiosity to submit this to Claude, the AI.
Okay.
I wanted to see, again, this was a test. Because, AI can be, flawed. Sometimes it's not, straight up on. Yeah.
Okay.
It is many times.
It's funny about the difference between you and me. That's the last place I would care to go for something like this.
Well, it was a curiosity thing.
Yeah.
And so
Murphy loves to play in this world.
So you asked Claude a question about...
Yeah.
Okay. What was the question?
So the question was, my brother and sister sold our dad's 1966 Vette 3 years ago after he passed. It wasn't running. Weren't sure how much it would cost to get it running. The person who bought it invested some money. It was running again. The actual tasks were much smaller than my brother and sister thought it would be after sitting for 40 years. We recently got to see it running, and it was awesome to see, but it's also easy to see. It's easy to have a flash thought and wonder, did we make the right choice?
Right.
But we absolutely know that we did. And this is what the AI came with.
Oh, you fed it. We know we did. So you fed it something affirmative about
I wanted to give it as much.
feeling.
Yeah, because I wasn't looking for reassurances, and I didn't want it to be only the one side. I wanted it to see our mindset and see what it said. And said, so it says, Murphy, what you're describing has a name. This is the part that's fascinating because I'd never heard of this before. What you're describing has a name in decision science. It's called resulting. Judging the quality of a decision by its outcome instead of judging it by what you knew at the time when you made the decision.
Yes.
Poker players are the one that coined this phrase because it ruins players.
Yeah.
They fold correctly, and then the river card, which is a Texas Hold'em poker thing. I don't play Texas
one
Hold'em.
of the flip over cards.
Yeah. Would have made their hand, and they conclude that they played wrong, but they didn't. And I'll explain why that works. For me, I geek out on stuff like this, so I was fascinated. So it says, look at what you actually knew about the Vette. It was a car that sat for 40 years. That's a genuine gamble. Fuel system, brakes, seats, wiring, frame rot, all in a 66 are unknowns until someone opens it up. The realistic range in that project could have been anywhere from $3,000 to $30,000, and nobody, including the guy who bought it, knew where that would land. He rolled the dice and hit the good end of the range. And if it needed a frame-off restoration, you would have never heard about it. In fact, if you knew that, you'd be telling yourself today what a smart sale it was because it would have cost a fortune.
Man, this is a gambler's language. Okay.
Yeah.
This doesn't sound like AI, though. This is great.
No.
Mechanical cost was never more than the whole decision anyway. It was 3 grieving siblings sharing one asset. So who fronts the repair money? Whose garage does it stay in? Who drives it? Who insures it?
Right. Ooh.
What happens when one of you needs to get your share out of it? Selling was arguably the decision that protected your relationship with your brother and sister, which 3 years after losing your dad might have been the thing most worth protecting.
Wow.
The value doesn't show up when you see the car at a stoplight, but that's the real value.
My goodness.
Is that crazy or what?
Claude is a genius.
No, don't say that, but it's a very good answer.
It's an interesting answer here. So it says the regret file only stores the winners you missed, never the losers that you dodged, and it's not evidence that your judgment is bad. It's just evidence that your memory is selective, and that's the way everybody's memory works. Here's the part that matters going forward. When you say you do your homework and it shows, you assessed a 40-year dormant car as a high risk, which it was.
Yeah.
The fix for the feeling isn't better than the. I'm getting lost in this part here. This part's not as exciting.
Tell me about it.
Let me jump to the last line here. One last thing about the Vette specifically. The measure of honoring your dad was never keeping the car. Someone who wanted it got it running. It's on the road, being exactly what it's built to be.
Yes.
Instead of sitting under a tarp as a source of sibling questions and tension. There are worse endings for a 66 Corvette and for your family.
Very good.
Isn't that crazy? And so, but I wanted to know about the Texas Hold'em thing. And so the resulting trap basically is about, it talks about, you face a big bet. Mathematically, you make the correct play. So you only can make a decision with what you've got in the moment.
What you see.
For real.
You can't control the outcome. And if you get, hung up on that, and I remember my grandmother, would say very similar things like that. Honey, you made the best choice you could.
It's true.
And she was right. But it's human nature to want to control the outcome. Mm-hmm. But I thought that was insane that it was as,
That was a pretty thoughtful answer.
For the, just to give you a little insight on the poker thing, I've watched a couple of poker things online.
Okay.
Yeah.
Streaming, when they have some of these big poker tournaments.
Yeah,
and usually what they do is when they get down to the last few people, they put percentages up. After the first 2 or 3 cards go over, what's this guy's percentage? What's this guy's percentage? What's this guy's percentage of winning? And again, that's what you're looking at right now. And then when they flip the first card, those percentages change because he's just improved because one face card came up, and it goes with, we know what he has. This guy's percent chance goes down. Mm-hmm. So
it's always changing.
It's like what you're saying. At some point before that next card is flipped, this is my percentage. I know my percentage. It's not good, so I'm out.
And it's still a gamble to go out or to keep going.
Yeah. You can say, I know my chances aren't good, but you know what? I'm going to stick it out anyway and see what happens. Mm-hmm. Not the smart choice usually.
Right.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I had never, it's cool that you've actually, watched and read up on that.
Now, I don't know anything about poker either, so I don't.
I understand. But it is about, that's an interesting analogy because it's about odds. And this is really not as much about AI to me as just the concept behind it. And then again, decision making is like we said at the beginning of the podcast. It's just tough because emotionally, when you're attached to something, there it is again, Jodi, right? He said, facts, not feelings. When you're emotionally attached to something, it's always going to skew you.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Fear is going to be the motivator. Excitement and overconfidence can be a motivator. All of those things, and it's difficult to put them, back into context after the result of the decision is made. for me, you really can't have one without the other, because if you make a mistake or something is not within your threshold or beyond your threshold, well, you just don't do that again the next time, or you alter your risk tolerance or your choice or whatever. But so it all winds up being, it doesn't look like I'm making sense to you, Jodi.
Risk tolerance.
Yeah. In other words, I mean, how, if when you're emotionally and you're all positive, and I'm sure that there is a lot of that's why casinos also, and this is not just about a gambling thing.
Sure.
It's an upbeat environment. They want you inspired. They want the hope, because all of that kind of stuff
Feeds
keeps you
into
feeding the machine.
Okay.
So that's what I mean by risk tolerance. When you've got a confidence that's elevated by a bunch of emotion, you're probably not scrutinizing the way you would. Whereas if fear becomes the emotional motivator, you go to the opposite extreme. And really,
Right,
the
and
answer is about
pull back.
The answer is about being in the middle and just trying to
Logical.
make the best decisions you can in that moment, hoping that you've weighed all the options, and then be comfortable with that.
Okay.
It's more important that you actually put thought into what you were doing versus being motivated by fear or motivated by the excitement. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so I just thought that was kind of fascinating.
It is. It's fascinating to watch you ask AI a question and read the answers, because to me, it's so funny. I know the way your brain works, Murphy, that lights you up, that we are living in that kind of world.
Yeah.
And it is, I guess, miraculous that we're living in that kind of world, from a kid who grew up in the 80s watching movies that they created a woman, weird science or whatever. And now look where we are. It's like crazy.
Yeah.
But to me, while you were reading that, and I knew that it was an AI generated answer, I felt icky inside. That's what it makes me feel like. I'm like, it's interesting, but that's not, how I want my decision making to be.
Yeah.
It's just a eye-opening experience of how differently we think and feel about the world.
Yeah.
I know that that's there and it's available, but I want to rely on my brain, my soul, my heart, my intuition, all those things.
Yeah. I think it's
Isn't that weird?
I think it's in how you use it. Well, notice I didn't use it to help me make that decision.
Yeah.
I was just curious about what it
afterward.
said after the fact.
That being the case, how do you feel after you read its answer? You feel good about
Well, I feel like I learned something. I mean, I still felt the same. It didn't change my feelings on anything. It just was an interesting perspective on that, because I think that I know the realities of it. It's true. My sister actually was the one that said, it's been sitting in your carport for 3 years. It sat at we called our dad Dane, that was his name, at Dane's house for 40 years before that. So the past pretty well predicts what the future is here. And if the three of us aren't going to make a decision on it, it doesn't do it any good to sit. And I agree with that.
And I'm so glad she said that instead of me.
Yeah.
Because I did not want to weigh in on it. I didn't want to be the wife who made you get rid of the Corvette.
Yeah.
But I was thinking, it's sitting here.
Yeah.
Right next to my car. I was so nervous about it. But I remember that. I said, it's not my, anytime you would ask me about it, it's not my decision, because I so didn't want to live with that. Think about if I had put my 2 cents in and said that to you, and then you ever let that help you make a decision, then regret, I would have felt horrible.
Yeah.
So glad Jackie did that. Said that, came to that conclusion herself.
Yeah. The other thing it threw out this line about when, people's judgments and questions and so forth, that if I thought this was really funny, is that people's takes on things like, yeah, man, I mean, it was in the family for 40 years and all they had to do was fix it back up. Boy, did they make a mistake. And the AI phrase that it makes a great campfire story.
Yeah.
It isn't
Right.
but it's not realistic. And so people's versions who aren't experiencing things and their takes on things, make for an
Completely
interesting spin and story on things, when the truth again is you've got to be at the heart of the decision and understand how you arrived at it in the first place.
Sure.
And so, again, I brought it up just because I thought it was really cool that AI was able to interpret that. But to me, this is about, again, underscoring the fact that a decision in and of itself, the emotion, meaning our grieving part, our attachment, our emotional attachment, had to get far enough behind us to make what we believe was the right decision. And then when people ask those questions about did you make the right choice, if it's the emotional component that's creeping back up on you again, well, of course you're gonna. You know what I'm saying? And I don't know. To me, that's fascinating, and I
It
really
is.
was interested in the analogy that it came up with about poker players, and I'd never heard of I've never heard it called resulting. That's basically
something
what it's
that
called.
you learned,
It's
for
because
sure.
it's a mental fallacy. Like you didn't know what the outcome was going to be because
Right.
nobody knows what the outcome is going
Some
to
of
be.
these decisions you make, it's
Right.
like a wish with facts, and you throw it out into the world.
Yeah.
You hope it goes this well. Here are your facts. This is what I'm going to
Yeah.
roll the dice on.
Yeah. So for
So,
that reason, I don't judge anybody that asks the question either. I get why somebody would ask that question.
Sure.
I mean, I really don't have any issues with with it at all. And I think that our friend Steve had asked us that. It's like now that you've heard some of these stories, does it change it for you? Which we love Steve. I mean, we've talked about he's an author. He's actually an EMT and has listened to us in Salisbury, Maryland for many years now, and he was the one that asked that question as a true author, storyteller would, wanting to know, if that changed that. And the answer is not really. I mean, and if it did, would it really matter anyway? But it doesn't. I think I agree with it that my dad would be happier knowing that it's being put to good use. I really do think that's the case. And yes, people collect them, but it's a car. And even Kevin, the new owner, will tell you that it's a car. That's why he didn't want to change it up much, and it's meant to be driven. And you know what he's doing with it?
He's driving
He's driving
it.
it. Exactly. So absolutely, we're at peace with the decision.
Thanks, Claude.